We are live again after a break on Wednesday, March 13th in Senate Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs. We are switching topics to S289, an act relating to age-appropriate design code. I am still anticipating a vote on this bill today. We are looking at new language that everyone has a printed copy of and is now on our website. It's draft 3.1 of S289, and Rick is not here yet, but I'll thank him again. I really want to thank Rick for working on this long into the night, and to the Attorney General's office for working on this all last week. And I think we got something on Monday at 7:30 p.m. from your staff. So we really appreciate it. I'll just say before I turn it over to the Attorney General, I think it's in a really good place. I'm really excited about this. It harmonizes definitions and enforcement procedures that already exist in the Attorney General's office. It adds a lot of specifics for enforcement in the year 2024 while keeping our forward-looking principles for what may come in the future. So, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, I think this could help set a new standard in the country for how we move this forward and how we argue about this in the judicial branch. And I'm really grateful to the Attorney General for helping us work on this. And with that, I turn it over to Madam Attorney General.
Well, thank you. That's a perfect preamble for my testimony. I echo everything you said. We heartily support this bill. I want to start by saying we have a unique perspective in that we have brought a lawsuit against Meta, and in the process of investigating Meta and compiling a complaint and suing them, we learned a lot of information. And it was information that just by using social media, by being out in the online space, you might not really get. And one of the things that has been very profound about that lawsuit is the uniformity with which the attorneys general across the country, who agree on not everything, to say the least. I mean, we've had like AGs leave the National Association of AGs because they disagreed so heartily with everybody else. But universally, everyone feels the same about this because the issue is so great. The Surgeon General has given us a lot of warnings and information about the use of, especially social media, but screen time generally. And we know that the harms for mental health, especially girls, teenage girls, is very great. So the need is great. You guys know that, but I want to emphasize it from our perspective. I am so pleased with this draft. Our comments have been incorporated. There's a couple things I might consider, like the findings section, always nice.
I'll say we had that conversation.
Yeah.
We would love a findings section. Senator Cummings is looking at me because the Senate doesn't like findings. Like certain senators who really don't like findings. Yep. I think we would welcome that on the House side. And I think it does help bills stand alone when they are national models and as we have this conversation. So we appreciate that your staff has even started drafting findings.
Yeah.
And I think we'll look at that favorably if the House puts findings in. Better not to have that conversation on this side to start, but I really do appreciate the suggestion.
Yeah. That would be, you've aligned a lot of the definitions with the Consumer Protection Act. This bill works nicely in harmony with the Consumer Protection Act. So we just want to make sure that there's harmony there. And I was pleased to see there was more specificity. I think that's really helpful, not just to getting the outcome that we want, but also for businesses to help them. This is what we need, and I think that that's all there. So I was just really pleased reading the bill. I'm really happy. And like you use the word excited. I'm excited too. I just think this need is so great. And it's one of those areas where the more you learn about it, the more urgent the need feels. And so I'm so happy that this committee is responding to that need with this bill. I think it's going to be great. And I'm really excited and grateful for all the work that you've all done on this. And I'm really excited to hear you think that it might get voted out today. That's great news.
Yeah. Any questions for the Attorney General?
Just appreciation for your work so far. And I'm excited about this.
I don't know if I'm opening a can of worms, but while we have you and we're getting the data privacy bill, I know it was important to us to make sure they are harmonized.
Yeah.
I look at it as this is trying to create products, features, design code that protects our kids in the first place. And they're trying to get at our kids and keep them engaged to mine their private information. And so it's really a both and. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about the data privacy bill. we're going to get and how these sort of dovetail.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ethos is kind of the same, and it's just, and again, I think for so many Vermonters, they really don't realize when they download a free app, they don't realize it's not free, that they're trading their data. I mean, so another reason why I love the findings ideas, because I think it helps educate and kind of set the table on why this is being done. But yes, these do work in harmony. We have been working on that bill for years, so we're attuned to it, and also super excited that that bill seems to be making such great progress. But these are, our feedback on this bill was designed to work in harmony with that bill. So just a really great session for kids and for people who care about privacy.
Right. In data privacy in general, I don't want to get us off track, but I don't know if anyone read yesterday that TurboTax is starting to mine data, and that's just a huge breach of integrity in terms of people's confidential tax information. So we might want to take that up either in here with the data privacy bill or in finance. That's going to have huge implications. I think it was Washington Post or anyhow, this is very timely stuff.
Every day it feels like it's something new, a new breach. Don't get me started on AI. Truly every day my staff is like, can we have an AI moratorium for 1 week journey where you don't like complain about this latest, whatever. So
Senator Brock.
I just have two questions. In terms of, this is a first in the nation kind of initiative in terms of potential of enacting something. I'm assuming you'd expect litigation?
That's always on the table when you do something new that could impact someone's
Well,
business.
have we heard from the folks who would be considered targets for this bill that?
I'll just say Meta has said they are neutral through their lobbying organization. That was
I was wondering about TikTok, all of the other entities involved.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you have considered what the cost would be to defend it, one, and two, whether or not you'll have to hire outside counsel. And of course, from that, whether or not you're looking for you're anticipating, even though you don't know for sure at this point, have in effect done some wargaming as to what this will cost and how we'll pay for it.
I would not anticipate if we were sued on this bill needing to hire outside counsel. And I also would just emphasize there are bills that this body could pass that are important, but maybe a little whimsical and could, get us sued. The problem is tremendous
and costly.
Yeah, because children, their mental health is suffering, they're not into so it's worth it. So it's worth it. With a case like this, I wouldn't anticipate us needing to hire outside counsel to defend it, if we were sued. I mean, when I talk about, especially our Meta lawsuit, and we have an investigation right now on with TikTok, I always say, companies, you don't need legislation to do the right thing. You could implement some of these policies right now. You could do it tomorrow and say, hey, charity parks.
And they are doing it in the EU and the UK.
Right. I mean, there is a way to be that says we acknowledge that the facts are there. I mean, it's like the US Surgeon General is not exactly like a fringe organization. I mean, and they're telling us what the harms are. So I would hope that this would be something in some respects the businesses would welcome, to say, like, we want to continue doing this business. There's a lot of good that can come out of online life, and we want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that isn't causing children harm.
So basically, your anticipation is this would not create a multi-million or multi-billion-dollar legal bill.
Yes, that's right.
To defend and support it.
Yeah, that's right.
Senator Clarkson.
Hi, Charity. It's good to see you. Sorry, I'm sort of hors de combat. How many other states are involved with our Meta lawsuit?
Well, we sued here in Vermont. Some states sued altogether, but there were 42 states collectively who sued in one capacity or another. And I think that's might be 42 states and territories. So I can't, and I don't have the list on top of my head, which is available on our website if you're curious, but it's almost all of them. Is the short answer.
Yeah. And by the time we're done with this issue, particularly the Kids Code, there may be more that want to tag on to our work. So there's always strength in numbers too, to just go to Randy's point.
Yes, there might be other states who are interested in passing a bill like this. Yes.
Then that raises another question in my mind, because we talk about the Surgeon General. The Surgeon General obviously said that tobacco was bad and we got sued and so on. But at the same time, there was a return on investment from our litigation.
It's
And I'm
almost $1
wondering-
billion at this point.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, given the nature of the harm that presumably can be documented, would you anticipate there's at least a possibility of a return on investment for litigation?
Well, I would say with the Meta lawsuit, we really have been focused on getting the harm to stop.
Mhm.
That's really been our focus. But, you know, that is always part of it. We certainly asked for monetary relief and penalties and that kind of thing with those types of lawsuits. So that's always possible. You know, and tobacco really is a great corollary because it's the same model of, you know, hooking children and then you have a lifetime user because it's an addictive product. I mean, there's a lot of similarity. We talk about that a lot with my other AG counterparts.
Other questions or comments? We will walk through the new language with Rick so people are comfortable with it. I'm just, while you're in the witness chair, you know, top highlights of things we changed are defining minor consumer, which I don't know if I want to speak to that, but you know, that helps harmonize existing Consumer Protection Act, what's going on with data privacy and what's in our bill.
And Madam Chair, if I could also just emphasize, one of the reasons why we like that is because the Consumer Protection Act passed before I was born, in the 1960s. And so there's a lot of case law that provides clarity on what the CPA means, which is good for everybody. It's good for businesses, it's good for advocates, it's good for consumers, because there's a lot of clarity and there's a lot of case law. So when you lean into the definitions that are already there, it's helpful. I like the idea of since this is a kids code bill, of providing that definition, and I think for minor consumer, I think that's great.
Perfect. And if we turn our attention to page 12, line 9, this is the biggest new section. It is the covered entity prohibition. So it gets very specific about the current design features that are harming kids and frankly harming everyone else, but we're focused on kids. You know, the low friction variable reward design, and Camille can speak up if I'm wrong, are things like infinite scroll, etc. It's just the industry terminology and what would help us in case law, I imagine.
And I appreciate that that's a defined term.
Yeah.
It's helpful.
Right.
So that's great.
Exactly.
Yes,
So
yeah, I
that's-
just noticed that that's a defined term,
Yeah.
and it's great that you have that, because I was explaining this to folks during the break at town meeting, because I'm very excited about this bill. Everyone loved it,
Yeah.
and then it's great to have this definition
Yeah.
of what exactly we're talking about, so, and it's not the broadband providers, it's the folks who are writing software,
Right.
so.
And I want to be clear that this and some other sections that were kind of cleaned up replace the data assessment tool. And you might speak to that, but that was going to be, you know, a potentially pretty weighty new requirement that you get these assessments and, you know, verify that they're meeting these assessments with how they treat their data. And that might be what opens up speech concerns as well.
Yeah, I mean, we also were thinking about, okay, well, it's good for companies to be doing that, but what are we gonna get out of it? Right now in the Consumer Protection Act, the Attorney General has the authority to do an investigation. We issue what's called a civil investigative demand, a CID, which can say, you know, please tell me XYZ, please give me ABC documents, whatever. So we already have a tool it's not quite the same. The self-assessment is a little bit different, but when we thought about it, really the CPA already has a mechanism that would allow us to demand that kind of accountability. And but of course it would be great if businesses did that kind of self-assessment. But yeah, I think that it's not as needed as some of the other components that are here.
Senator Brock did that.
Just a question on page 12, line 15, under the consumer covered entity prohibition, permit a minor consumer to be exploited by a contract on the online service. Are you comfortable that that is sufficient in terms of understanding what that means, exploited?
I didn't write these exactly, so I almost wonder if Ledge Counsel would be more suited to answer your question. this section I read and I was comfortable with these,
That's really what I'm really looking
Yeah.
for is in terms of you having to defend this in litigation, that language of, is that sufficiently precise that you're comfortable with it?
permitting minor consumer to be exploited by contract on the.
I will jump in while you're
Yeah.
thinking about it and reading it to say there was a lot of back and forth between stakeholders and the council on some of these. And if we determine that, you know, this wasn't specific enough, then the house can continue
Yeah.
to work on this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Camille wants to speak to what the specifics underlying this are that you might recall, but we took a very specific list like infinite scroll
Yes.
and made them sort of a little broader so that it captures how this is being talked about in the country.
My understanding is, I think what the bill is getting to in this line is that,
Oh, and would you identify yourself?
oh, yes. My name is Camille Carlton, Policy Director for the Center for Humane Technology. My understanding of this line on the bill is that it is trying to get to the exploitative practices in the terms of service around how platforms will use kids' data for ongoing periods of time, will require them to agree to some sort of transfer of data information for use without really understanding it. But I would default to other people's expertise on if it is specific enough.
Can I offer to, this is, I would say, you know, casually, it's fine. Can I offer to noodle on it? And if we feel like a tweak needs to be made, we can do it on the house side. The, especially having, I think Camille's helpful, description, a broader description. We can think about if there's a better way of saying that. I think it's fine the way it is, but we can think about that on the house side and circle back with you and let you know if we think there should be a tweak.
Second question is, do you anticipate the likelihood of parental concern regarding the limitation on monitoring and restrictions on monitoring on line 18 on page 13?
Dark patterns?
Or permitting a guardian.
Permitting a guardian or minor to monitor the online
Oh,
activity
thanks.
and providing the signaling associated with that monitoring.
We've had some lengthy discussion about this as
Yeah.
well, so that was in the bill before.
Yeah.
And it's been a conversation about things like domestic violence
Yeah.
and, you know, how much we balance parental rights and responsibilities with, you know, a child under a certain age isn't even gonna know what that signal means. A child of a certain age probably deserves to know that their parents are monitoring their activity, otherwise something might be really wrong in that relationship. So this, I would say, this is not without controversy,
Right.
but I,
That's my concern.
Yeah.
Is that in terms of the controversy, when you have a bill like this, the more people you have in favor and supporting, the more likely it is to survive.
So do you have a specific concern you wanted the Attorney General to address about enforceability
No,
or?
well, I'm, enforceability obviously is one in terms of the parents' responsibility for monitoring the child on the one hand, and the other hand is whether or not this is overkill.
I wouldn't say that I have a whole lot to say about this. I haven't really thought about it too much. I would say that we, you know, have a tradition in this, we acknowledge the complicated, especially teenagers, the complicated situations that some teens find themselves in their homes. And, you know, I respect and can understand the conversations that you all had, and I haven't really thought of it, so I'm not really prepared to weigh in at this moment deeply, but I can see why you landed this way, and I don't have any objection to it.
And I can see this conversation continuing until
Yeah.
this bill
Right?
gets to
We'll
the
continue in the
staff.
house, would be my suspicion.
Yeah, I mean,
So here,
yeah, it's sort of it's a philosophical conversation at
Yeah.
some level, and, you know, we're saying parent or guardian, but again, that doesn't have to be the custodial parent or guardian, and I think you just get into deep concerns if the platforms are providing secretive ways for adults to be tracking a minor that don't have a conspicuous
oh,
signal.
that's secret ways, there are ways that you can purchase a piece of software separately and put it on anything. device like this.
Right, so
They're readily available.
this is focused on these platforms and their features and product design. We can have a whole nother bill or conversation about software you could purchase to track your children, but, you
And
know,
how sometimes those are easily hackable and the problems that could create,
right,
arise with that.
right.
Well, what you're saying here, if I read this correctly,
Mhm.
the covered entity shall not permit the tracking, but it doesn't say anything that a parent cannot use some third-party device to track.
Right,
I'm reading this correctly.
that's just not
Without
contemplated in
notification.
this bill because they're not a covered entity, exactly.
Well, I wanted to make sure that
Yes.
was the intent, and that's everybody's understanding.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that that's a conversation.
Right.
It's worth having. I'm
Right.
sure you've had,
Yeah,
it's not,
the
it's
hope,
one of those
yeah,
areas where you
right,
can of course
exactly.
see both sides.
the hope is you'd say, I'm giving you this iPhone, but it's coming with tracking. I'm gonna know where you are, you can't change that, and that's a different parental conversation than I'm gonna watch what you do online and you're not gonna know, which I think we're asking the platforms not to enable that kind of behavior without a conspicuous signal for any adult-child relationship.
Just a detail kind of thing that I wanna see if we can do it, on page 11. Line 12, it has to do with the default privacy settings.
Yeah.
And it says configure all default privacy settings provided to a minor consumer through the online service to a high level of privacy. Could we say the highest level of privacy?
I was thinking, I actually highlighted this because I love this. It bothers me that the industry doesn't do this automatically.
Me too.
So I always say like, just do it. You shouldn't be told how. So I had the same thing, like, what do you say, highs? The truth is they've invented these privacy protections.
Yes.
That's of their own making.
Right.
And so I was kind of unpacking that too. Should we say highest? What if they only have 2? Is that the highest? I mean, do you need 5 levels of privacy? So I kind of like that this was a little bit more flexible depending on the entity. Maybe I'll have something to say about it, but I was comfortable with this.
Okay.
And I thought that this got the job done.
Okay, and then when you request that they show how they're abiding by this ordinance, by this statute, then they can explain what their levels of privacy are.
Exactly. I mean, you mean the CID?
Yes.
We're investigating them. We would say like, have you done this? I also just want to say out loud, we all know this, but when you talk about consumer issues, one of the fun things I love about consumer law is we're all consumers. And so we get to demand of the product what we want of it. And we can see examples throughout history where people protest and it changes the industry practice or products. And I hope that us even having this conversation is telling them the writing is on the wall, folks. You might as well get on board and be a hero today and
Right.
save the kids, 3 years of not having the high level
Yeah.
of privacy or the highest that you can come up with. So I think it's great that we're even having the conversation. This one in particular, like it really bothers me that they wouldn't put the highest level,
Right.
a high level. You could say the highest. I don't really have opinion either way.
Well, I would be concerned about putting highest level because the implications are then you put NSA-like security and there's a cost associated with that, which could be significant. High level, I think, is more reasonable.
I think I like high level, but it's flexible. But if
Mhm.
you said highest, I wouldn't say, and now I don't like this bill. So
Right,
I don't want
What is
Okay,
what is the highest level though? I mean, who defines that?
Right, I will say I'm flagging things, so whoever goes to report this to the House can say, we still have these lingering questions, we wanted to get it over to you and let you keep noodling on it with the Attorney General, and the stakeholders, but I just want to know for everyone, I think nothing I've heard is like a deal breaker,
Mhm.
it's things that we want to continue to discuss before
Yes.
final passage. Great. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Madam
I'm
you.
so
We'll probably see you
excited
back
about
for the
this.
privacy bill.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait for that
Yeah.
either. It's so nice because I think about these things all the time, and then when I can actually talk about them with people in like a big release. So I probably went over my
Yeah,
15 minutes.
when you
thing.
have AI week that you can't talk about it there, you can come talk about it here because
Oh my god.
we have much more work. to
Don't
do.
even, I'm always like screenshotting the ads that AI is trying to send me where they ask AI to a girl and it's a woman that AI
Mhm.
creates and I'm like, that's not a girl,
Yeah.
a French girl. What is French about this girl? I literally, it's so
Yeah,
funny.
it's getting concerning.
Yeah, and that's just the tip of the.
And maybe we'll have you in on this tax data privacy issue because I think it's extremely concerning. And we might wanna add something.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
anyway, well,
Okay,
thank you very much.
Thank
Good luck
you very
getting it out
much.
today.
Thank you. Rick, we'd love to get you in the witness chair. I wanna say with you and really appreciate how much work Rick has put in with a lot of stakeholders, a lot of back and forth, a lot of late night conversation. And so just really appreciate that. Rick, if the floor is yours, sort of what you feel is really important to share. And I appreciate, you know, as a new Ledge Council member, you were already looking for what do you want to accomplish? And does this sort of align with your intent while also honoring what the Attorney General needs? So appreciate all the thought you put into that.
Well, Rick Sable, Office of Legislative Counsel. Thank you, Madam Chair. So yeah, as the chair noted, some considerable changes. I want to walk through those changes with you all. I think the Attorney General did a good job of answering questions. I will say I have not had much time to look at this. I received this yesterday, and it's a pretty significant.
Wait, you received it Monday night, which counts really as
Sure.
Tuesday
Well,
morning, because
yeah.
but I just
I in full transparency.
yeah.
At 11:59 Monday night.
Right. 7.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, and I say that, what I would have like to have, that's what I'll say. I'm not, overly concerned, however, I would have liked more time to work with it, but I know it's crossover week and, you know, things get crunched. So with that said, I'll kind of walk through it and, please stop me if, anybody has a question. Affiliate does not have any change. It's a very standard definition. I'll skip affiliate. Age appropriate has not changed since the last version. Basically saying that there should be tools provided based on different age range of children's children, 10 to 12, 13 to 15, and so forth. Collect also has not changed. Just basically access personal data pertaining to a consumer by any means. Consumer has changed, and I want to talk about consumer for a second. And the Attorney General noted that everyone's a consumer, and I think that's true. However, when we define consumer, that changes who consumers are under this bill. So, and I came in late. I'm not sure if she addressed this, but you know, our definition of consumer here does not match what's in the CPA and the Consumer Protection Act. That definition of consumer is much longer. It's much more inclusive of different kinds of purchases or leasing. But my concern with the term consumer is the definition here means an individual who is a Vermont resident and who provides consideration for goods or services either for sale or not for sale. So the reason I defined it that way is because someone using an app has not necessarily paid for the app. Consideration typically means you pay money for something, right? When you enter into a contract, even to buy something, to buy not even a car, but to buy a piece of gum, your consideration is $1, $2, you're paying for the gum, and you get the gum as the good. In this case, what are you paying to access social media? Are you paying, if you pay for the app, sure, that's your consideration. If you download the app for free, are you still a consumer? So I'm just flagging that as a potential issue. It's like, are we consumers of social media apps under the statute? I try to word it in a way to define consumer that includes people who are not paying for the apps. If we were to use the consumer definition in the Consumer Protection Act, I don't know, I don't know how to look at it, if that definition would include people using the apps for free. So I just want to flag that for you all. I think this definition works, but I'm open to suggestions. A covered entity has not changed, I don't believe. It is basically, in this case, where it's a very wide net, sole proprietorships, partnerships, corporations, individuals. We kind of make that net smaller here in a little bit. Dark pattern changed a little bit. In fact, that might be a new definition. I believe it is a new definition.
Yeah.
So a dark pattern means a user interface designed or manipulated with the effect of subverting or impairing user autonomy, decision-making, or choice, and includes any practice the FTC categorizes as a dark pattern. I understand the FTC updates their definition of that on a fairly ongoing basis, so we want to make sure that we included their categorization of the dark pattern.
I think it's great to have that defined.
Default has not changed. The identified has not changed. Derived data has not changed. Low friction variable reward is a new definition. So a low friction variable reward means a design feature or virtual item that intermittently rewards consumers for scrolling, tapping, opening, or continuing to engage in online product or feature. Examples of low friction variable reward designs include endless scroll, autoplay, and nudges meant to encourage re-engagement. So this is a phrase used in the sector. The apps that are subject to this statute understand what this term means. I'm not sure people understand what I didn't know what it was till I wrote, this definition or helped form this definition. I think it gets the point across what these are. Basically, it's a way to get consumers to stay engaged with the app by giving them rewards, tokens, something to keep them engaged in the app.
Right, and the variable part is important because it's not automatic, so that's what keeps you.
Yeah.
Okay.
My understanding there's something psychological about it.
There is.
Um,
I mean, they do that with animals.
yeah.
Online gambling.
Yes.
Classic.
I think even I've read somewhere it's like the Vegas effect. When you're playing on a slot machine, you'll randomly win, and that keeps you seated.
Right.
So that's the idea. They're trying to replicate that Vegas effect.
Right, you think it's random.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, it's not. Those are computers. Oh my goodness. Okay. So subdivision 11, minor consumer is a new definition. It means a natural person under 18 who is a Vermont resident and who provides consideration for goods or services either for sale or not for resale. So this is the same as consumer that we defined earlier, but just now we're talking people under 18. Online service, product, or feature has not changed, the definition. Personal data has not changed. Precise geolocation has not changed. Process or processing has not changed. Profile or profiling has not changed. Reasonably likely to be accessed. I don't believe there's any changes. Okay, no changes. I had to make sure. So 17, no changes, subdivision 17. Sale, seller, sold. No changes to that definition either. (19A) social media platform is new. And it means a public or semi-public internet-based service or application that is primarily intended to connect and allow a user to socially interact with such service or application and enables a user to construct a public or semi-public profile for the purposes of signing into and using such service or application, populate a public list of other users with whom the user shares a social connection within such service or application, and create or post content that is viewable by other users, including content on message boards and in chat rooms, and that presents the user with content generated by other users. Social media platform does not mean a public or semi-public internet-based service or application that exclusively provides electronic mail or direct messaging services, primarily consists of news, sports, entertainment, interactive video games, electronic commerce, or content that is pre-selected by the provider for which any interactive functionality is incidental to, directly related to, or dependent on the provision of such content.
Just ask a question about that. When we talk about news, you could get, say, CNN that you get online, or RefTech, or any of the news publications. And if you do something interactively, is interactive, for example, selecting something on the news site to look at? Or must there be something coming back? Well, something coming back would still be whatever you asked for. And I'm just wondering does this regulate the receipt of content? Such as news?
This section made me wonder if our press exemption disappeared.
No, it did not.
Oh,
So-
okay.
So it may not, however, I was gonna flag this paragraph anyway, because paragraph troubles me. It's number one, not very clear, in my opinion. And I think it's fairly broad, and I worry that, if we didn't have that journalism exception, let's take out news for a second. The sports, the ESPN app, or if you have an app that is not really social media, to me, and interactive video games, I just think that this section is important, and I think we want to make sure that I all understand like what we're trying to exclude. Because if you're not excluding something that you want to exclude, that could have consequences that you don't intend. So I just think that maybe this section here, you decide to punt on it, the House would need to maybe further define this a bit better.
So, I'm gonna see if Camille wants to address this. I believe the important piece of this is that you have a function where you can delete your profile and take your data.
Yeah, so I think what the bill is outlining, and very, very happy to massage the definition more, but this definition isn't the scope of the bill at all. It's just a definition for one specific obligation that we added, which was about deleting social media profiles and the data attached to social media profiles. So it's tied to that one obligation, which
Right.
Rick will walk us through.
Which I was gonna say, I'm so grateful for this whole section because the industry came in and started talking about Etsy, like that was the focus of our bill. So I really feel it was valuable because all of a sudden I felt flat-footed, like, do we all agree what social media is? And I think this starts to do the best we can to discuss what we're talking about. And again, this piece thoroughly applies to deleting your profile, which has become such a point of contention for people who, want to be able to exit these systems when they feel it's affecting their mental health or their kids who are being bullied. I mean,
The
that's,
news is affecting my mental health.
that is
I
fair.
become
That
so
is fair.
depressed every night at
But you can take that up with the media companies that. Oh, and I just want to say, I asked the media organization that reached out to us about this bill does have some of the biggest names in news, including the Boston Globe, et cetera. Because I asked who in our state is impacted. So obviously it's the bigger ones, but it's gamut as well. So Burlington Free Press, et cetera. I just wanted to.
Yeah, but you have to get a subscription to those to get, I can't get the Times Argus unless I have an online subscription.
They still want to make sure that they're exempt from this bill
Oh,
as participants in the social media
Yeah.
universe, because they're under attack. So,
do I get to comment on it? Yes, maybe some places I can.
Beachy ticker, you don't
Yeah,
have to subscribe.
right, it just shows up.
right, I just wanted to name that the reason we worked on a press exemption that satisfies the major media
Yeah.
organizations,
Yeah, I would
including
see
the
what
Free Press.
I mean, yeah, you don't talk back and
Mhm.
figure doesn't talk back to you.
And they probably use Facebook, but they're not like Facebook.
Right, and our definition
So
borrows
that's
from Minnesota, Montana.
The press exemption.
Yeah,
The press exemption from Minnesota.
okay, yeah, so we borrowed that language that satisfies them.
Yeah, I'll add that, you mentioned commenting on Facebook. A lot of these news organizations do post on Facebook and you can certainly interact with them there. And your content, but then is hosted on Facebook, which would be included as a social media platform, clearly. I just, again, if you want to exclude Etsy and these companies, makes sense. However, I don't know if this clearly does that to me.
Okay, so I
That's-
circled
that's-
it
yeah.
along with 3 other provisions
Yeah.
that we might wanna flag for the House that, we wanna continue. But I think it's good we're attempting to define a social media
Sure.
platform.
Okay, also excluded, is an application that is used by and under the direction of an educator. I'm at line 20 on page 8.
Oh,
Is used by and under the direction of an educational entity, including a learning management system or a student engagement program. On page 9, third party is not changed. So we go to scope and exclusions. The first part is not changed. A person is considered a covered entity for the purposes of the subchapter if it collects consumers' personal data or has consumer personal data collected by a third party. Alone or joined with others determines the purposes and means of processing the consumer's personal data, operates in Vermont, and alone and on combination annually buys receipts for the covered entities for commercial purposes, sells or shares for commercial purposes, alone or in combination, the personal data of at least 50% of its consumers. So that alone really kind of reduces the scope here quite a bit. This subchapter does not apply to protect health information. This has not changed. Part 4, just the next page, subdivision 4. This is the
Okay.
press attention. Yeah, a business whose primary purpose is journalism, as defined. And I showed you all that last time, what that definition is, and that has a majority of its workforce consisting of individuals engaging in journalism. So hopefully that exempts those types of organizations. 2449C, minimum duty of care is new. A covered entity. This was best interest of children, and we rephrased it. So some of this, a lot of this is new, so I'll go walk through it. A covered entity that processes a minor consumer's data in any capacity owes a minimum duty of care. As used in the subchapter, minimum duty of care means the use of the personal data of a minor consumer and the design of an online service product feature will not benefit the covered entity to the detriment of a minor consumer and will not result in, this language is the same, reasonably foreseeable and material, physical, or financial injury to a minor consumer, reasonably foreseeable emotional distress, a highly offensive intrusion on the reasonable privacy expectations of the minor consumer, the encouragement of excessive or compulsive use of the online service, product, or feature, or discrimination against the minor consumer based upon those protected classifications. 2449D used to be the data protection assessments, so we've gotten rid of that. If you remember, the previous version had the covered entities producing these assessments of their own internal, data practices. So the Attorney General suggests that we get rid of that for various reasons and really kind of make it more of a you shall do this, you shall do that, instead of a produce these assessments every so often. So a covered entity subject to the subchapter shall configure all default privacy settings provided to a minor consumer to a high level. You all talked about that already. I agree that should be high, not highest. Provide privacy information, terms of service, policies, and community standards concisely, prominently, and in language suited to the age of a minor consumer that is going to access that service. Provide prominent, accessible, and responsive tools to help a minor consumer or, if applicable, their parents or guardians to exercise their privacy rights and report concerns to the covered entity. Honor the request of a minor consumer to unpublish the minor consumer's social media platform account not later than 15 business days after a covered entity receives such a request from a minor consumer. And provide easily accessible and age-appropriate tools for minor consumer to limit the ability of users or covered entities to send unsolicited communications. So that also could be potentially something to think about. Is I thought about the example I thought about was if you're on Facebook and you want to sell something on the marketplace, and let's say you're 17, so you're a minor, that would be something that you might want to think about. Would this make that difficult? How would we handle that? Because if you post something for sale, you're going to get unsolicited requests, or maybe it's not unsolicited, maybe it is solicited. Maybe you're
Yeah, if you put it up for sale, you're soliciting requests.
right. Yeah, I would say that, and, as we discussed this back and forth,
Yeah.
the UK, has figured this out. The Facebook has figured this out with the UK, so, if they say like, well, what if this is gonna, get us in a world of trouble, we have to remember that they already comply with this language elsewhere.
And, you know,
And that the greater harm than like selling an Xbox is that an adult can contact a minor late at night and, pretend to be somebody else
Right.
and all kinds of.
I get, yeah, I get
Yeah,
the intent of that,
Right.
and it's obviously, you want to protect minors. You are casting a pretty wide net here, especially including the term covered entities. If Snapchat or one of these apps wants to send a administrative messages to a user saying that,
Right. And again, it's easily accessible tool for them to be able to limit this. This is when we go back to, Ohio tried to do parental controls and also got shut down by these companies. Like they don't make it easy to say, I have a 12-year-old girl. I'm gonna make it so that no one can communicate with them, period, after 6 p.m. so they can go to bed and, blah, blah. Like, yeah, especially not some random adult. So I wish this existed when I was on AOL, frankly, back in the day.
Subsection
Closet with a telephone.
Right, there you have it. Let's go back to that.
Subsection B, a violation of the section violates the minimum duty of care that we defined earlier in the statute. Covered entity provisions 2449E is also brand new. A covered entity subject to the subchapter shall not use low friction variable reward design features that encourage excessive and compulsive use by a minor consumer. Permit by default an unknown adult to contact a minor consumer on his platform without the minor consumer first initiating contact. Is that duplicative of the section subdivision 5? Maybe, but
I think it's I think it's important that by default, that we're just saying, give the settings, etc. But by default, you cannot
Right.
allow a random adult to contact. Yeah.
Just an easy one, I think. On line 12, should we say excessive or compulsive? So we don't have to prove both.
I think they go together in my mind. Like, I don't know.
I'm just thinking about the
Yeah.
frequent and pervasive.
Mm-hmm. Right, that's fair.
But if
Can I circle it and we can
yeah,
I mean, I'll circle it.
yeah,
and
we shouldn't do it just random.
Right. I still would like to vote it out today because we've asked Rick to do
Yes.
more stuff for Friday, so
Okay.
I don't think it's unworthy.
Okay.
I think it's interesting. I've circled it.
Thank you.
And I've circled 3 to be exploited by contract to also further explore. And then that was what Randy raised with you.
I had that same issue, that phrase.
Just a better definition for
Mhm.
what you mean by that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where the next one.
That's
Permit,
fair.
yeah, so I was pretty saying my thoughts that to me is fairly vague. Exploitation is not a defined term here. And you probably want to be clear on what that would look like. And either define it or use different words to explain that.
Yeah, and I think once we get we took specific examples and tried to generalize them a tiny bit more, because the second you are specific about something like infinite scrolling, they're going to change it to something else that engages in, encourages compulsive behavior. So I think with this section, I think Senator Bronk is the one who brought forward an article about, your parents put you online as a teenager with their account, you start to get blackmail and harassment from adults on Instagram. I mean, there's a lot of exploitation happening. And these platforms know about it, so if we ever wanted to go after these almost like OnlyFans sexual exploitation of teenagers on social media platforms, this is a hook to start to look at how that system works and how social media platforms should take more responsibility for what's happening. Kind of like Backpage used to be of like, like they knew that they were getting ads for minors. They knew what was going on and they were allowing it. How do you stop that?
Now, I want to make sure this is contract, exploited by a
Mhm.
contract, not by a contact, so.
Yeah.
Some of-
No, I know it's
Yeah.
contract.
Right.
but,
So That would just be like
Yeah.
their terms of service are just
Right,
so
right, yeah.
unconscionable.
Yeah.
It would not cover exploited by a contact by a person.
No, I didn't mean contact, I
Okay,
think.
but yeah, just
I
make
think
sure.
the piece of that exploitation, and saying, well, you signed up for this is the issue. And like starting to define what that means.
Actually, when I first read that, I thought it said contact.
Oh, okay,
Oh, no, when I
because
said,
above it says contact.
yes, and exploitation of a contract is not commonly used.
Mhm, exploitation by a contract.
Right,
Yeah,
and a contract exploits you.
right,
Terms of the contract.
right. I mean,
Terms.
essentially, what I think what this
was.
points out is we don't let minors sign contracts in the real world.
Right.
We don't let them agree to anything on paper that binds them to
You're not legal until you're 18.
Right.
Can't sign
But
it.
online, we have let them click a button and do something, and that's a problem, so we shouldn't, we should allow them to go back and say, I was a minor and I signed that, and that's, you need to delete this, or,
It could be an implied contract or something.
right.
Yeah, yeah. And we're
Those long service
terms of service,
agreements,
the terms of service usually. Even lawyers don't read this, by the way.
Mhm.
The long,
I do every couple of years just to see how ridiculous they are.
they're never in favor of the user, they're gonna be. Subdivision 4, process personal data of a minor consumer unless it is reasonably necessary in providing an online service, product, or feature requested by a minor consumer with which a minor consumer is actively knowingly engaged. Profile, these are things they shall not do, just to remind you all. Profile a minor consumer unless the covered entity can demonstrate it has appropriate safeguards in place to ensure that profiling does not violate the minimum duty of care. Profiling is necessary to provide the online service, product, or feature requested, and only with respect to the aspects of the online service, product, or feature with which a minor consumer is actively and knowingly engaged, or the covered entity can demonstrate a compelling reason that profiling will benefit a minor consumer. They shall not sell the personal data of a minor consumer. They shall not process any precise geolocation information by default unless the collection is strictly necessary for the covered entity to provide the service, product, or feature requested.
Question, if I might, the issue of profiling. In the preamble or earlier parts of the bill, it talks about there are, in effect, different standards based on the age of the minor. May an entity profile to the extent of trying to understand the age of the person who is signing on? So that they know that they're dealing with a 7-year-old as opposed to a 17-year-old?
I think that's a great question, something I came up with too. I think the statute's trying to avoid that, but I wonder how. If you're asking a company to, make appropriate tools, they have to know their audience, and the way they know their audience is by processing data. So I think there probably has to be some kind of data processing to determine age range in order to correctly profile their users.
Right, I think that the point is that they do it in a way that's not violating the
Definitely.
minimum duty of care. And that's why we didn't ban profiling, because they're age banding in a way that probably aligns with that initial definition to say, do you want Roblox, to help you learn to read, or, to like play some complicated video. I don't know what Roblox does, but you're gonna engage in tools that you've agreed to that
I guess
provide
that-
different age appropriate content.
That covered entity, this is an unless, can demonstrate a compelling reason that profile will benefit a minor consumer. Imagine you could use that logic as a basis for profiling to determine that you're not selling 17-year-old content to a 7-year-old.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there is an out there. So there will be some processing, but I think there's enough here to protect the minor consumer. So we had processing the precise geolocation information unless that information is strictly necessary for the covered entity to provide the service requested, and then is only collected for the amount of time necessary to provide the service, product, or feature. That's subdivision 7. Subdivision 8 shall not process any precise geolocation information of the minor consumer without providing a conspicuous signal to the minor consumer for the duration of that collection that precise geolocation information is being collected. Shall not use dark patterns, or shall not permit a parent or guardian of a minor consumer or any other consumer to monitor the online activity of a minor consumer or to track the location of the minor consumer without providing a conspicuous signal to the minor consumer when the consumer is being monitored or tracked.
And I circled that. I think it's, again, a big conversation.
That's.
B, a violation constitutes a violation of the minimum duty of care as provided in the statute. 2449F is also new. This is from the AG, so this is their language. A covered entity that violates the subchapter commits an unfair and deceptive act in commerce. This is the CPA that the Attorney General referenced earlier. That allows them, before we had specific fines that each covered entity would have to pay if they didn't do the data assessment. So here we no longer have these specific fines, we now just have this tool that the AG uses frequently to go after a business that violates commerce or is unfair in their acts of commerce.
The question is, could we have both forms of enforcement?
The last one did. There was the default fines that the AG could levy, and they also had the option to pull in the CPA, the deceptive act. So you could have both. I think they decided.
This allows for both, and this just mirrors existing enforcement language in Title IX, so it's like long established, and we probably should have asked the AG, but they definitely levy both in the context of the
In
consumer
terms of
protection.
fines that you can levy, how are they set up? They, a specific dollar amount for
$10,000 per violation,
per violation?
which could mean for
Per
child.
person?
Yeah,
Presumably.
But I thought the fines were gone.
they're in here. So
Okay.
this gets us aligned with existing Consumer Protection Act enforcement, which
Okay.
is stronger than what the baseline was.
Okay, I think ours was 5,000.
It was 2,500.
25 and
Okay.
7,500 if it's more than, there's some range there, but yeah.
Okay, so they still have options. Great, thank you.
Subsection B, the AG may, prior to initiating any action for a violation of any provision of the subchapter, issue a notice of violation to a covered entity if the AG determines that a covered entity is in substantial compliance or that a cure by the covered entity is possible. The AG may consider the following in determining whether to grant a covered entity the opportunity to cure an alleged violation described in this previous subsection. The number of violations by the covered entity, the size and complexity of the covered entity, controller. I flagged that term. I don't know what they mean. The size and complexity of the covered entity controller. I'm just not familiar with that language.
Sometimes a controller is an internal auditor.
Right, and yeah, like I've heard comptroller too,
Right.
like kind of like the internal tax person for a company. So their
But I
language,
don't know
their
that.
language, they may know something that I don't know.
And it's old, like, it's just old language, you know, like it's been 50 years of like since the 60s, so, you know, we're just.
I don't know where
doing
this-
it.
I don't know where this language came from out of here. I know it came from the AG's office. I just don't know where they pulled it from. But again, this is
Anything here they pulled from, you know, long-standing enforcement statutes.
okay. I don't know for sure, but if you know that. then. Subdivision 3, the nature and extent of the covered entity's activities. 4, the substantial likelihood of injury to the public. 5, the safety of persons or property. 6, whether the alleged violation was likely caused by human or technical error. And 7, the sensitivity of the data. So yes, the AG can go after, these covered entities. However, there are several outs for them to use in case they don't want to, charge them with a deceptive trade practices violation. There's quite a bit of flexibility, I'll say, a lot of flexibility. And maybe that's what they want.
I want that for that.
Yes, they want the flexibility from.
Limitations, nothing in the subchapter shall be interpreted or construed to impose a liability. And I'm sorry, I've not read that statute. I did not write that 47 USC. I was worried about getting the other parts together. So 47 USC, I don't know.
But I think that's United States law, that's
It
not
is,
VSA.
it is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not familiar with that. I didn't have time to research it. To prevent or preclude any minor against slave language. Preclude any minor consumer from deliberately or independently searching for or specifically requesting content or require a covered entity to implement an age verification requirement such as age gating. And that was in the previous version.
I've just looked up US code Title 47. section 230 is about radio communication. So it's probably wait,
Might be
yeah,
like freedom of
230, yeah.
speech.
So it's saying, Camille,
Yeah, it's the Communications Decency Act, section 230. It's about ensuring that this is not a violation of the First Amendment. Yeah, for all of them. Yeah.
okay,
That's a good thing to happen.
yeah. It is.
2449H, rights for children, this is the same as it was in the last version. It is the intent that nothing in this act may be construed to infringe on the existing rights and freedoms of children or be construed to discriminate against the child based on those protected classes. And the rule section does not change. The AG may adopt by rule any standards or procedures the AG deems necessary to implement the purpose and policies of the subchapter. And July 1st is the effective date, 2020.
Comments or questions directed at Rick? I'm gonna take a moment. We're gonna record a vote. Oh, you're welcome to stay in the witness chair if you vote. Do you have to?
I'm good.
I hope you can stay, because we do pass this with enough time to go back to some other issues, and you're game for that.
I
What do you think? Okay. Questions, thoughts? So,
I think this is wonderful
Yeah.
and necessary, and I'm so happy to be just part of this, and it's essential.
I just wanna note, we have some stakeholders around the room who've been with us for this whole process, especially our young people. Does anybody wanna say anything before we take a vote? Camille, I'll start with you, just because you may have heard things that you wanted to address, and you've had a big hand in doing this in multiple states, so.
No, I mean, I think I just want to say thank you, and it's been such an honor to support you, Chair, and work with all of you, senators. And I think what I particularly love about where the bill has landed is exactly what you said. It's really clear cut for right now and for the Attorney General, and it's also looking to the future of, we can't anticipate all of the terrible designs that are going to happen. But we can kind of put a path forward. And so I think the bill balances those two things really well. And yeah, I'm just very, very grateful to be here and excited that you all are taking on this issue.
Thank you. Zoe, Juniper? There?
I just think that it's very nice to see the needs of young people prioritized in such an important capacity within our state, and I'm very excited to hopefully see this bill pass and hopefully see more focus on the needs of children and safety online.
And Zoe Moy, BBU student for the record. My intern. Juniper?
And I think she just put it quite eloquently, and I'm just happy to be a part of it and to watch this go through and hopefully make it.
Thank you for your testimony. It was really, really
Having
helpful.
me in.
I'm very emotional, so I'm not saying anything. I'm just really, I know how much our young people go through, especially young women right now. And it's extremely daunting. It's just really hard to see those statistics and how much our youth mental health is affected right now. Sorry. People know I'm pregnant, and so I'm a little more weepy than usual. And to know that even some people in this room have gone through that and have come through the other side to help other kids. So it's really meaningful.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of you both. Really proud of our young people. Now, and I'm just grateful to our committee for putting so much time and effort into this bill and for taking this on.
And it's our job as adults to protect them, so that you don't have to go through this.
Are you ready for motion?
Ready for motion, so I don't start.
I would move to approve, S 289 draft 3.1 dated 3/12/24.
Is there a second? Oh, yours.
Am I supposed to? Oh,
Or is
yes.
No, sorry.
Second.
I was like, okay, awesome. Okay, Senator Brock,
Yes.
Senator Clarkson,
Wake up, Ellen.
Oh,
Senator Clarkson. I'll come back.
okay, yes.
Senator
I'll
Cummings?
text her.
Senator Harrison is yes. And Senator Ron Hinsdale.
Let me text you.
Okay.
She's
No,
on.
Okay, okay, great, good. I didn't want her to miss the moment.
Senator
I
Clarkson.
haven't been missing it, and it's been very moving. And just confirms what we all said earlier on, which was I think I can quote Wendy saying she was yes, yes, and yes. Right? Or didn't? Yes, yes.
Yes, wonderful. And Senator Ron Hinsdale.
Yes.
And the vote is 5-0-0.
I haven't thought about who will report this bill. I might start crying on the floor if I report it. I do believe we're gonna get a lot of questions, so, I'm happy to take the lead, and I really look forward to other people speaking, unless someone, feels really strongly that they want to report this bill.
Yeah, you did the work on it.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you all. So I'm really gonna have to get tears out before the floor on this one.
We're gonna have to do a little practicing with you before you do
Yes,
this.
exactly, exactly. I really want to thank all the stakeholders. I want to thank people who spoke with us nationally who are working on this. I especially want to thank our young people, and I want to thank Rick, who this is your first year doing this job, which is not an easy job to do or explain to people what you do. And you worked with a lot of stakeholders and a lot of nuance about how we get to this place, and it's a really strong bill. So thank you, Rick.
Yeah, I was a very small part of that. You have a lot of help around here and at your table, so I'm glad to be a small part.
And I can never miss an opportunity to thank Magali, who's gotten national witnesses and people who are busy and thought about people's flight schedules and being here and not being here. So that
This is a bill that is going to go to court, and all the legal counsel, the Attorney General, Rick. Because the words are important when you get to court, and we've already lost on this at least once, and twice. It's important that it has exactly correct language.
Yeah.
It was the best change.
Yes. And process wise, I think we have our next meeting with Commerce today. So we've been in very close touch with the chair and vice chair. And if you're following her on social media, you know that Representative Priestley has been really dogged about this. So, we'll be well suited to they've been talking about privacy and related issues. We're getting their bill. So we'll be in extremely close touch, and anybody's welcome to be part of those meetings, and we'll take some of these issues that people have raised and make sure that we continue to work on them.
Wonderful.
Thank you
And
all.
thank you. Thank you for your leadership and keeping us on track.
Yep, no, good work, everybody. This is an important bill.
Oh, it's fundamental.
Yeah, and process wise,
I'm gonna figure out how to sue them to help the schools with the number.
yes,
That's my next one.
right. I appreciate the Attorney General saying, get them to stop, and we need mental health support. We need them to be part of the solution.
Yeah,
moving forward.
The rise in mental health needs with kids and the absorption of social media and the availability, the coincidence is just too hard to ignore.
Exactly.
It changed in the 90s, late 90s to 2013, 14.
Right.
It's just a sea change.
Yeah.
Causal.
Yeah. The sophistication of the ads and how they monetize for children's well-being is daunting. Okay, and process wise, I don't believe this has to go to another committee. I am gonna talk to the pro tem. I don't love the idea of starting a bill Friday and continuing it onto Tuesday, so I think we'll ask to have it passed over on Friday so that we take it up second and third meeting Tuesday and Wednesday of next week.
It's your choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'll be, I'll talk to the pro tem, but I think given how consequential it is, doing it at Friday at 11:30 just also doesn't feel like it's a great idea. So We'll,
You
we'll,
never want to do a page bill on Friday and let it
exactly,
roll thumb.
exactly,
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah.
Never, because that just gives the weekend for
Mhm.
all the
Right.
naysayers to get on the
Right.
phone.
Exactly. And I wanna thank parents and people who I think will hopefully see the news that this is moving forward and feel, and who have been reaching out and saying I'm doing the best I can. So I can't imagine Etsy or Meta are gonna reach out to us over the weekend and say they oppose it. They'll sort of save that for their next step. But, I think we'll wanna celebrate this with Vermonters who all have weighed in a lot of ways. So great. That's all process wise.
No press coverage.
Right,
It's just not a sexy topic.
We'll see. It's been printed press coverage, and they might be waiting for the floor. Who knows? And it's actually been national news. I think is what's interesting. We'll see. We'll tell them that they should be covering this. There has been a lot of communication with the press as well, so they might be waiting for the moment when they can really understand this and know that it's
Once we
moving
tell
forward.
them it's not gonna look like that, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's true too. Okay. If people will indulge me, I would like to switch gears. Do people need 5 minutes before we do that? While we have Rick in the witness chair, I want us to be able to go back to some of our questions so that people have 2 days to know if those questions are consequential to them or not. I'm specifically thinking about the veggie and just veggie, or is this?
Tomorrow we have the taxes vote, right?
Oh, great, okay.
I'm not ready,
We'll leave
I'm
that
not
one.
ready, yeah, I'm not ready to.
So we might not even need until noon, so if people wanna ask their questions of Rick. I started
veggie
at 7
question?
years, then yeah,
On,
I kind of said, oh, that's a Rick question after you left.
Right.
what bill?
Sorry,
247.
right. 247, we're looking at 708.
I sent Magali a Senate version of it, you'll have that amendment, Senate amendment to 247.
If it's materially the same,
It's the same.
then we won't print new things, but you can.
I believe I gave you one printed copy. I don't know if it's circulated.
So I'm looking at this.
It's the same version.
Okay,
This is,
so-
I just copied
Eight,
it.
no, it's 8708.
Yeah, yours is S247.
I handed it to Senator Harrison. That's what, Magali printed one copy and I
Oh.
gave it to you because.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's the age zone. That's
Mm.
not right.
I'm
This,
happy to print off.
that says 708.
Yeah, I got
Okay.
708 here.
So anyway, I let it go, but anyway,
I'm
let's just
sorry.
do 708.
I probably have it under.
And I
Here it is,
circled stuff
here
on
it is.
708.
Okay.
If anybody wants to, we'll make sure it's.
Just, yeah, if you have 708, it's the same,
Yeah.
Okay.
same words,
Okay.
So 708 is exactly the same as
247.
yes, 247. Marked up, I'll look at it.
Right, that's what I was looking for, my markup.
Oh, excuse me,
So-
Senator Buck, there's one, I added the
Oh.
appropriation, section 3 on S247.
Okay,
Has
can
the
you wanna
appropriation.
pull it up on?
Yeah.
The.
There we go.
Yes.
We can look at the appropriation. which is
There we
the big
go.
thing.
I'll go down to the appropriation. And I just wrote this, I was in here earlier, so you can tell me if you think it reflects.
We had language previously,
We did,
somewhere, we had language
For this,
for the $300,000.
for the 350,000, I remember seeing.
I don't,
I believe you because you
I-
read everything.
But
it's in the government budget.
it,
Did this language come from the government budget or did you just?
I just
put it
drafted
in?
this.
Yeah. I mean, it generally is accurate. It's just, as I understand it, it's to mitigate risk
right,
in the program.
Yes.
I don't know if people. Basically, we can noodle on this for another 2
that's
days.
fine.
Yeah,
Well,
No,
the question is where this has been presented to the Chair of Appropriations
yeah,
and presumably as part of the government's budget. Where does appropriation stand with this? Maybe it's not necessary, but
right.
depending on where they are.
Yeah, I think our only intention here is to attach the proposed appropriation to the policy language so they, and I know they're gonna strip it out and maybe in finance,
Yeah,
we're able to find some other risk management money, risk mitigation money. that
maybe.
rolls over. You
I'll
have
try to find the 25 million.
So,
No, I thought we
the
wanted just to
708
make that, you know, if it's just in the governor's budget
Yeah.
and there's no backup,
Right,
then they might just axe it because they're actually.
Yeah, like
That's why I would
before
say, just, just talking with Jane as to, are they attuned to this and is
Yeah.
it?
yes, I will mention this to her since we've all heard in no uncertain terms that there is no negligible amount of money this year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we should fess up quickly if we have some appropriation asking for us, so.
And so the only question I've got there is that if, it's in the governor's budget going forward, is it necessary to do it here? Is this gonna hold it up? In terms of just another day of appropriations again, for something to be stripped out?
What I heard from, our stakeholders is they would like it attached because otherwise it is sort of disembodied. So, and they want us to be able to say, we support this risk mitigation fund. So I think the question for us is still, do we support it? And I do think Cassie's support is contingent on this from a VA perspective. Senator Clarkson.
Yeah, I mean, it needs an advocate. Otherwise, appropriations will, it's going to be cut before it goes to the House anyway. I mean, we all know all the appropriations get stripped out. So
I hear what Senator Roxanne
if you're,
said, an extra day.
if we are not advocating for it, it will just be a piece of the governor's budget that doesn't have a voice. So I think it needs to have a voice. And the second thing is 708. Did 708 have the elimination of the sunset?
Yes,
Oh, okay. I just
Well,
wasn't.
okay, S 247 is the information.
they both do, yeah.
They both do, okay, yeah,
Okay,
That's
good.
important.
so that's a
Okay.
good question.
Think
Those we
delete
don't wanna
that
miss that.
elimination.
That is section 2 in this, as it was in section 8.
Repealed.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, got it.
That's the important.
The eclipse of the sunset is
Okay.
my phrase.
So I'm prepared to go through Senator Harrison's language ideas, if others are, because I'd like to get those moving today in anticipation of Friday. Senator Harrison, do you want me to start going through them or?
I'm sorry, I was just trying to find where's the repeal of
It
the.
should be at the end, section 2, the last thing in the bill, at the very last page of this bill.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was section 2. So all of this is section 1.
All of the section 1, yeah.
Okay.
All that cross out.
Okay, so it's just crossing that out.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That section law has been amended several times. I feel like it's every year to push out the sunset one additional year. So
Yeah.
this would totally remove the sunset. So you wouldn't
Trying
have.
to do that for at least 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sometimes it got 3 years, I think, and then it got cut back to 1. But every time it gets some bad publicity, it cut back to 1 again.
Yeah.
They
Okay.
just need to do a better job of presenting because I'm confused. I understand the concept. I start reading, why are you moving those 3 years to 5 years? I mean, just because it's consistent doesn't mean
Right.
it works.
No, I agree, and I don't think that's something that we need to discuss more, right?
Right, yeah, everyone seems to be, I
Okay.
mean, it's, we'll have to discuss it with our colleague. But
But they've got to do a better presentation if they want to get $350,000.
yeah, yeah. And if, we all need the buy and everybody's correct. Somebody's reporting this, I'm kind of hoping it's Senator Clarkson, I don't know. Or, I don't know if you want to.
Well,
it's
no,
not Nancy. But either way, we all want to understand it and defend it for voting for
I'll
it.
trade you this one for captive
For
insurance.
pet
PFR,
insurance, yeah, right.
Pet insurance. That's
Wendy,
gonna be.
I think Wendy, Keisha, I think Wendy is our VEPSI member, so it's appropriate for Wendy to do it. I'm happy to do the elimination, but I'm happy to do whatever, but I think it makes sense for Wendy as the VEPSI person to do it.
Yeah, we can
Okay,
sort
we
it
can-
out. We can
we're
sort it
not
out.
deciding
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah, it'll be good to see too, what else passes, you know, we'll sort it out, because we're not voting till Friday.
Okay, so, do you want me to go through my questions? Oh, I know you had some listed, but.
No, I have all of them. I mean, I was back to page 1 to see if we want to say up to 5 years or.
Yeah, I would, if 5 years pays out over 9, I would really like an explanation and a clear authority to do it that way, to be in the statute.
Okay, so that's back to a Joan question.
Yeah, and I think can I just say, my understanding is part of this is to simplify this program. To go to Ann's point and Randy's, it's hard to, you know, make it look easy and understandable. I think the 3 years is great because I think the tail is so long that if you can make it shorter for smaller businesses, that makes a lot of sense. So I would be supportive of the 3 years if Joan can explain the need for that to everybody's satisfaction. But I would support 3 years.
I mean, all Joan said for an explanation was, well, we're doing 3 years for the forgivable loan program for small businesses. So we should be consistent and do 3 years for regular veggie. And she said, now some businesses only give a 3-year projection. So I thought we were talking about up to 5 years.
I think they liked up to 5 because, and I like it because you have different industries that project differently, that are more affected by market forces or not.
And presumably then the vet board might be more specific in its award, saying this is for 3 years, this is for 5 years, or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And give that flexibility.
And I think saying 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, okay, so
Like the word 3 and then TO.
between 3 to 5 years, however.
So where are we looking? Can I ask that question?
Well,
One.
Oh, do you want that?
there's the award period.
Yes, here in the definitions.
Yes, on page 2.
Oh, sorry, you're right. I don't know why I wrote up to there. Well, let's go, okay.
Well, I did.
You had another question that's
Yeah,
not
my
a real
question on
question.
page 1
Okay.
was, why did we delete sharing portion of the revenue with the business?
Why?
They
I-
basically said that's what they do in practice, but
Yeah, I don't recall making that decision. This was kind of I received some model language from the commissioner's office back in the fall. And, you know, being new, I don't think I would have marked out that, not knowing much about veggie at the time. They added the but-for there, Senator Frank. That's something that's, if you're looking for the but-for.
What line is that?
That's on mine, it's line 16. Otherwise, you would not have without the incentive. But Senator Harrison, I don't know, and sharing a portion of the revenue with the business.
I honestly, I don't think they ever done that.
That doesn't appear to be something that veggie does.
So I think that to me, it seems like a cleanup piece, and that's essentially what Joe said. Like, they just don't do this, so they like the language strap.
And this is also a purpose section.
Right.
Right, which is, that's important.
Mhm.
So deleting something, I just wanted.
Yeah. So we'll needle a little bit more on this, but I think in general, we don't want to do revenue sharing with businesses. I don't, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe that's part of the tax department's calculation
Yeah.
is what they provide, what the new employees provide to the state indirectly is sharing a portion of the revenue. But that's pretty awkward.
The only thing I could think of, it was a way to say, we do this because it generates more revenue that we then put back into the business. So, I think it was a complicated way to say that the idea of the program is to generate revenue, kind of like a TIF, that you generate more revenue, they get some of that back so that they could continue to invest. But I think it just was old language.
That actually makes sense,
Okay,
because they
yeah.
do say generate net new revenue to the state
Right.
and sharing a portion of the revenue with the business.
Right. It was kind of their fancy way of saying, like,
We're giving back some of it.
yeah, this is why this program exists.
All right. Okay.
I wasn't
makes
there,
sense.
I wasn't there, but that sounds right. That
I
sounds,
wasn't either.
sounds like something.
None of us were here. So,
Okay, so then on page 2, that's where it has the award period, means the consecutive. 5 is crossed out and then 3 underlined, during which a business may apply for an incentive.
So we wanna say 3 to 5 years.
Right, but now there's 2 ways, there's the initial application and then this applied is after you've already received the okay to be in the program. Then you apply for a particular amount.
But,
Every
okay, what I would
right?
say is this number of years is the only factor that can be changed. Everything else is the application period, the truing up, the scrutiny, the payback, the blah, blah, blah. But everything else had to change because they changed this. I don't think they're particularly wedded to it. I think it's totally a policy question for us of it creates more certainty on both sides of the relationship. And we could make it flexible from 3 to 5 years, or we could leave it alone.
Okay,
Let's say 3 to 5 years.
I would say 3 to 5. The important thing in this is that we get the sunset either moved or done away with.
Yes.
And that's gonna
Yeah.
be a little controversial.
Right.
We've done it before, I think we did it last year, we put it on miscellaneous tax if it fails.
Yeah,
But that'll be 1 year.
right.
And I'm kind of concerned that they're doing other you've got a new program and you've got you could be gone tomorrow.
Right. I mean, I think,
And
yeah. In
I
your
don't know if
defense,
these are important enough. The new program, I think, is fairly clean and understandable.
yeah,
But you start getting into the weeds with 3 years to 5 years. I
right.
think people will get distracted.
I think to be fair to them, they were trying to pace some changes and it all got bottlenecked. Like,
Yeah.
they wanted to just remove the sunset and have other conversations.
I would do that.
I still think, so we could take them separately. It seemed like we agreed on the sunset. I hear what you're saying. If you take them together, it's a lot. This new version of the program, I think, helps so many more Vermont businesses,
Yes.
which I think would help our colleagues support it. Saying, okay, we're getting rid of the
Yeah, what I'm
sunset.
saying
We're
is,
also making it small
when you
businesses eligible.
get down to 3 years to 5 years and
Mhm.
that's getting into the weeds. I don't think
I think we could let go of the year
that's
change
what
altogether.
I would think, and get the important things
Yeah.
through. And because this just gets people well, why this many
Mhm.
years? And then they start asking,
Yeah.
well, how does this program work?
Right. I didn't hear that this was like the hill they wanted to die on.
So you're saying not change?
Leave it alone.
the
Go back to
existing
5
language?
years.
Leave it
Go back
alone.
to 5 years.
Do the new program
Yeah.
and get the sunset out of there.
This is a conversation you could get more detail for the committee about in the future of,
Yeah.
is 3 years better? Is flexibility better? So I think that's totally fine.
And
So
I'm assuming that for an individual applicant, the SEPC board can decide the number of years per applicant. But this,
Well, she said they already do, just sometimes they bring in 3 years worth of projections.
so I agree with that. The simpler the system.
yeah. Okay. So Rick, is that clear?
Yes.
Anywhere where the years
Yeah,
changed,
that's
we're
the
not
easiest.
changing them. And it appears multiple times.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
they have the award section where I can look at it. And see.
Right.
That's a pretty major change they made to that.
Right. So the next thing I have, Wendy, was the employee and cooperative benefits.
Yes, I don't know where that would be at.
Because I don't know if the
Well,
language exists.
Are we gonna, if we're only doing but
Well,
you're talking
that's
about the loan thing.
Yes, that was my suggestion to give
It's the
more points
Mhm.
to businesses that are co-ops or
Is it
employee
set how
owned.
many points anybody?
I'm using the word points, but
Yeah,
Enhanced consideration.
Yes.
but you're on the board.
Right.
I've been
But I
one meeting.
think
But-
it's great to spell out.
But the reason is I think logical, which is that
Right.
we want to support businesses that are going to stay in Vermont.
Oh, here it
not
is.
be
Look.
swallowed up.
Oh, here, it's actually, it's above on page 2. The council may approve the following enhanced incentive. And enhanced incentives exist. I think enhanced incentive isn't more points. I think you can actually say you're in a tighter, you're in a lower labor market area, we wanna increase your wages more, we wanna just add more value, we just need
Yeah.
flexibility.
I don't know what the impact of being an enhanced incentive means.
So
It
let's
might
find
be in
out.
another category.
Right, okay, so you're gonna work with Joan to find out what that means, but in the meantime,
Okay,
we're still, Rick, wanting to add something here for employee and cooperatively owned business.
yes, and there might be
We
another
wanna make it
category
sure
too
they're
of those
included under
businesses.
enhanced incentive.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, or in somehow give them a leg up in this
Mhm.
in this process. And is there a total amount that can be spent or obligated each year?
It's 10 million,
That's the,
that's Vita's 10.
So does the
It's like
10
3
million?
million.
yes, I believe
Okay.
that, yes, there is, because they've come up to their limit and we've extended it, usually gets extended in emergency board. Because it usually happens in the summer. But they had, on occasion, they've had more businesses than, and 15 million is sticking in my head, but I could be 100 million off on that.
Okay, so I'm just
I'm
gonna
not
say
gonna put
that
numbers
a
in.
maximum limit exists.
There is a limit to the amount of credit, the amount of money they can commit. The amount of taxes we don't collect, this is really tax expenditure.
Senator Harrison,
There is a limit.
right, can we count on you to like take all the questions we have and make sure Joan and
Yes, but
address it?
but this would be a policy question. It's,
Yeah.
so does that maximum limit that exists already now apply to both of these programs?
Yes, it does, that I can say for sure.
She said there was Vita also has
Right.
a limit, they can't loan more than
Exactly.
10 million.
Right, and so our only appropriation
Very cautious.
that that it considers the 350K, everything else is, and that's accounted for in the governor's budget, but everything else is accounted for in the existing program.
Yes, we're fine with tax.
Okay, so I think most of the questions I did have were about the years.
Right, that's true. But Rick, do you need anything on that enhanced incentive piece right now?
No, there are a couple of statutes that address enhanced incentives already. For example, there's one for, like you mentioned, qualifying labor area.
Yeah,
And there's also one for environmentally,
so we'd add that to this,
technology business.
we'd add this to that section.
Yeah, well, yes, and there's two sections, one for just qualifying labor market area. There's another one for an environmental technology business. That's also eligible for an enhanced incentive. So,
Yeah. So
uh,
we're
just gonna have to kind of figure out where it fits in and what that enhanced incentive is. If you
so.
wanna leave that up to VEPSI, or if you wanna leave that, if you wanna put it in statute.
I think right now, it would be good to draft the language so we can see it
Sure.
and just put it in there as an enhanced incentive. Senator Harrison is gonna make sure that by Friday, we know what an enhanced incentive means by getting Joan to make sure she's answering that question.
Right. Okay,
Well, I think
And I take it,
we were trying to make any changes other than the sunset and the new program as minimal as possible.
right.
I mean,
Right.
something
Yeah.
terrible's gonna happen if we don't do that.
right. I think, so I would say, to me, that seems like a change that makes this program more favorable to our colleagues who frown upon, business.
That's
Financial
no problem.
The change,
Yeah, for the,
Of the
yeah,
co-op,
when
for
we
the
get into
change.
why are we doing 3 years and 5 years?
Yeah,
right,
Why are we doing this
exactly,
and that?
that's fair.
so the co-ops is the only thing, except for the new program, that is,
Yeah, that would be new.
okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great,
It's all gonna fall out if we don't do all of the changes. I don't agree.
right. No, I don't think it's, and I don't think it's the bottom fall. I'm convinced that after years of arguing over this program because it only goes to really big businesses who like Global Foundries does move out of the state or move some part of their
Really
process out of state. Those small businesses usually aren't going anywhere, and to make it easier for them.
Well, I
Like,
got one in Barry
Yeah,
that's has been for years recruited by China
yeah.
in making electric components,
Mhm.
for EVs.
So we're rewarding people who couldn't grow without us as a small and medium
I
sized business.
think. I think Viva has just got to get a better public image. I think the new president helps, but it is, in some sense, economic voodoo. We put information into a program and it kicks out whether or not this is but for or not but for, and there's been a couple incidences, I think it was 2 years ago. One was Ivy Computer, and the guy's giving an interview to the press, and he says, oh yeah, we're gonna hire 50 people, and we're giving them an incentive grant to hire 50 people. And word was, why are we giving you an extra grant if you're gonna hire them anyway? And I think it's to speed it up. And there was another one where they were oversubscribed, but then Simon Pierce dropped. There were 2 things in 1 year that just, they're dealing with a lot of money and they need to have a very professional base. We lacked in that sometimes.
Wasn't there also an issue with Global Foundries or predecessor in which we gave them money when they were dropping and they already had planned to reduce employment?
That was like a separate allocation to Global Foundries.
Yeah,
It
I
wasn't
think
this
that was a
program.
separate allocation. I think that was from the governor.
That wasn't an embarrassment, it just
Yeah.
was, we often deal with Global Foundries separately and find money. It was the enterprise fund,
But
remember
we
that?
may,
Yeah, that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we may
Which-
need
yeah.
to start rethinking. I don't want to discourage companies become more efficient because they might lay
Right.
off
Sure.
to
Sure, you understand?
That's a good
Well,
question.
they're increasing, and if we wanna change the wording, we can, but we want them to increase overall payroll, because often, even if they say I'm gonna hire 50 people, if we help them hire those people for $10,000 more salary each year, we're probably getting better people
Oh, yeah.
who are more
Well,
committed,
We're gonna
we're,
have the
it's,
employees.
you know, we are in such a competitive labor market where housing is our biggest concern, but
Right now, property taxes.
yes. Yes, I see this as one of the small things we can do to advantage us in the labor market
Oh, yeah.
otherwise.
No, I'm just
Especially our
saying, as we
corollary.
go forward,
Yeah,
we need to be paying attention to what's happening in the world. You know, we did it with remote workers. That's a new reality. We've got an experiment out there where it's a company down your way. I think they do things with photograph. But we're letting them, we did it for 2 years and COVID got in the middle, so it's still hanging in there. Keep their, energy fee, they would pay the renewable energy and use it in their own business to, get the same amount of benefit. This has been hard fought, but it's worked, but some of the ways it's worked is it's allowed the businesses to put in new efficient, energy efficient, machinery and allow them to become more efficient, which we have the whole energy efficiency thing that we
yeah,
just wanna coordinate.
right. The next thing I had was seemed like a question about the average annual unemployment rate is greater than the average, so where are we talking about?
Yeah, and
Changes, I don't know that we can do anything about
No,
that.
and
I was just saying, we,
tried to answer.
that's part of what we're
Yeah,
gonna drop.
Well,
well, it
Or is
sort of
that the new-
exists. Well, you have to define economically disadvantaged region, but
But they
a
said-
labor market area is a defined.
Yes, that's,
Contract.
yeah.
We need to leave that in there, but there's not much we can do about it to help Munisburg Falls or.
Even though it is somewhat mind-boggling that Stowe and Waterbury are in an economically deprived
Right.
labor market.
I mean, you can have a city where the building next to another building,
I know.
you know, terribly
But
unemployed versus.
yeah,
And is it the state or the federal government that defines the labor market area?
they-
Okay. And then the State Department of Labor uses those areas?
Yeah, they're looking at our
That's the
unemployment rate, exactly.
Okay.
So we're not doing anything there, top of page 4. This is again that question of maintaining payroll, which is flexible. It just means even if you have less people, you're paying them more, so your
Yeah,
overall
but-
payroll's going up.
Is that for the existing veggie program or is that for the new program we're putting in? I
Oh.
think we need to be very clear that this is a new program and this is what the rules are for the new program. And these are the changes, and I don't think we should unless it's
Right.
vital, make any changes to the old program.
Right,
Getting that
Mhm.
sunset done away with is going to be challenging,
Mhm.
has been in the past, and I have no reason. to
we are
think
not,
against
yeah,
it.
basically, this is saying for the purposes of the forgivable loan incentive, that's the
Okay,
small
Then
business one.
that's what we need to lay out
Mhm.
and make it as clear as possible. This is the new program.
Yes,
I wouldn't touch the old program, it just confuses things.
right, and I think once we take the years out, we don't touch the old program.
You know,
Yeah,
correct, we're not there. If you, going back to page 2, if you unstrike 5, is that what you all want to do? Am I correct in that?
yeah,
Okay, so if you unstrike 5, and get rid of 3, then we are going to address the award section. Because that's how they're able to reconfigure those award years.
right, but if we go back to the old language, we're not messing with the old.
No, but so you want to get rid of their suggested changes in the award
Yes.
years?
That's what we're talking about, going
Okay,
back to 5 years,
so,
taking out change to make
That
it
out,
all
okay.
5 years.
okay, so we'll get there. When we get there, I'll mention that again, but. 'cause
Right,
they-
we know there's other sections,
Okay.
but what it does is revert back to the existing
Correct.
language,
Correct.
which is satisfying more so Senator Cummings' concern that we leave the old
Veggie,
program alone. And if we have a new small business program, we focus on new requirements there.
Yep.
And both will now have the 5 years.
And next year, we can come back and do,
And Senator here said, well, tell us what we should do.
you are our eyes and
Yeah,
ears
right.
into the internal workings of
Yeah.
veggie.
Now, it's possible that having a 5-year limit would allow 3 years.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
She said
what
they
we
do
heard.
it now,
Okay,
they do
yeah,
3
so,
years
okay.
again.
Right.
Okay,
We can
so I'll confirm that.
triple check that, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, I
So
don't
then-
think anything terrible is going to happen between now and a year from now if we don't cut that 5 years. to 3
Mhm.
years.
Okay,
I think I'm just, whoever's presenting this on the floor, it's gotta be as clear.
Mhm.
And the more you get down into the weeds, you're gonna do weeds, you wanna do one package of
Well,
weeds.
more that you're able to almost have 2 sections of the bill. Section 1 is the existing veggie program, and that's simply elimination of the
That's that.
and then the new section is small business veggie.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And that just simply shows how it differs from the existing, and that can be much clearer,
That-
people understand
That is a drafting question.
yeah,
Is that,
that feasible.
No.
seriously.
When I received the language, it was also very confusing. It took me a while, because I'm new. And I,
No,
okay, what's going on?
I'm getting confused and I'm
Yeah.
not new, so.
And I had several changes back and forth to kind of clarify, not substantial, but just to clarify what we're doing here. And now I'm fully aware of what this does, and you all are correct, it is a forgivable loan for small businesses. It's another track. You have your,
Mhm.
right, you have your direct
Yeah.
cash and you have your forgivable loan.
right,
But in order, they're kind of intertwined, right?
Yeah.
They are separate, but they're also intertwined because it's all through the same.
the foundation is the
That's
same.
Right.
Yes, and
Yeah.
you can't create, in order to do a separate section, I would have to unintertwine it, which you can't do.
It's a duplex, it's not two exist, it's
I
not
would
an
love to
ADU.
have it be a separate section, because
Not
I
a
would,
detached building.
I would write it a little bit differently in
Yeah.
a separate section, but unfortunately, we have to loop it in with the current program. And
Right,
just have it as a track, like it's option 2.
right,
Yeah, and I mean, can we do that without making changes to the existing?
I think we have, if you get rid of the
Mhm.
award changes, I think
Okay.
every other change, and I
Barring
reserve the
the-
right to change my
Yeah.
mind about this, but
That's
I think, I
Only
think-
barring the enhanced incentive for employer profitable businesses,
yeah,
which I think we see as a worthy thing that probably gets us
Oh,
more
yeah.
support.
any other change made to the original veggie was to separate it from the sneak flavor.
Exactly.
That's the only other substantive changes
Right.
that are in this bill.
So can I just,
And
so
by
I
the way,
understand,
you're doing eliminating the sunset last very.
Yes.
so we can't move this language to the front.
You can,
make it
section
be
2, sure.
such-
You want the sunset to be the first time.
Yes,
Sure.
That can
and
be,
just so that it'll be more logical. That's-
I agree.
Senator Brock was saying.
Sunset out of the way. You have
Yes,
questions
I
about
mean, if
that?
we don't do the sunset,
Yeah,
there's no sense
Right.
doing a new
Mhm,
program
mhm.
because
Right.
we aren't gonna exist
I
after.
think that's great.
Okay,
Okay. So the next thing I have is, it sounded like maybe a policy question on the top of page 7. There. And again, you're gonna make the years realign, so.
I guess that's not new,
Right.
or capital investment.
Oh, yes, yeah, so it
It
has
looks
always
new
included
to me.
capital investment, yeah.
Yes, yeah, it always is.
Okay.
where are you looking?
Up
That-
here, that capital investment. Because I thought it had to have jobs, that it wasn't jobs or capital, it was jobs and capital, if capital was going to be.
It's a work.
there.
It's all.
Okay,
Yeah, and this, and
so we have some that don't,
Yeah,
include jobs.
they may just be
Okay.
building an addition to the
Right.
factory.
And we
Okay.
know it creates tax revenue.
So that could be the efficiency part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there, yeah, let me add, there are a few things Joan and I talked a few weeks ago after the House took up this bill to clarify some questions I had, and those have not all been implemented on this. It's not major substantive things, but there are a few things that I'm making the next draft after we talk about this other stuff. That's one that needs to be, written a little bit better to
Okay.
clarify, so just.
Okay. Okay, we're not voting on
I
anything?
didn't think so, but I think I might be chairing money chairs today.
Okay, so
So I
5
gotta
minutes
go
earlier.
get some
Yeah,
lunch,
right.
or I don't get to eat.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you.
You should get to eat.
I try, but sometimes I.
You don't have that right. And then page 8, I'm gonna channel Senator Cummings. Maybe we should leave existing statute alone.
Oh, totally, because of
Yeah,
the
right.
complications of just opening this up.
Yes,
Yeah.
And I will understand and communicate as necessary, that
Right.
significantly different manner means time,
Mm-hmm.
means early.
Yes, it could mean time, it could mean pathway for growth, it could be number of employees.
I would think that in reporting this, one approach might simply be to say that this bill deals with 2 things. First, the existing veggie program, which has been in effect for years, and a new program to deal with small business, which isn't really covered well by veggie. With the original veggie program, we're not changing it. We're recommending that it be made permanent. We've looked at it multiple years and multiple occasions. It's working, and here's some statistics to show that. The second piece is new.
I am perfectly fine if you would like to report it, I'm serious, I'm not. I'm not being
I
facetious,
think the fact that you're
but I'm
there,
so newly there.
well, that's everybody else's too.
You are, I think someone
Well,
said it, you're
let's-
looking at it with fresh eyes,
Alright,
and
well,
that
let's-
helps our colleagues,
I
nobody.
mean, we'll be,
like-
be there for, whatever backup.
Right, yeah.
To add
Because we-
to it if,
We've always had this like, we're just extending the sunset a little bit more, let's stop talking about it, and we should talk about it, we should talk about this new program that helps small businesses.
yeah,
Let's, you
the old
know,
program
this
is
is up
working,
to,
it's working well, and
Right.
here's some of the results over X number of time.
right,
Boom.
and here are the things I,
At that
you know,
point,
I
would
wanna
stop
take back to the
talking about
board to improve for the future, like. Someone might ask you, why do we do this or that? And you can say, I'm gonna find out, I'm gonna go there and make it better, but for now, this helps small businesses participate, which I think everybody wants. The next thing I have seemed like a total drafting question. But I could be completely wrong, is page 9, we start to move everything that says growth to benefit. Calculate revenue benefit instead of new revenue growth.
I believe that's to include the addition of forgivable loan. Or, and also,
Right.
so they have, so now they have the option of payroll increase or capital investment. So I think they don't consider um. Capital investment to be growth or.
Right.
So yeah, they get this is
It's
a,
flexible.
this is
way.
this is their language that they suggested based on what they think. It should be worded, how it should be worded. I don't think it's a huge change, it's just,
But it might be worded weirdly, like
Yeah.
I let Senator Harrison keep.
Yeah,
Wonder what capital benefit is.
Yeah, or a revenue
Why
benefit.
would you expand the business if you aren't gonna grow it?
Right,
I wouldn't do it.
they may have seen some, that maybe they thought that was limiting in some way, I don't know.
Right.
Anyone asked?
in a way, you might wanna say something about calculating the benefit, not the revenue benefit. I think that's throwing me off. Revenue benefit isn't a phrase we often use.
Sure, that would be much easier to be flexible if it was just calculated the benefit.
and it's the benefit to the state.
Yes. To calculate. Which new benefit generated to the state exceeds the cost of the activity to the state.
Which, I mean, that's,
You could either say just benefit or just revenue. Like, you know, I don't know,
Yeah,
but
I don't know
it's
why
just
they-
weird. It's
why
weird.
they did that.
Yeah, but I
Okay.
get,
On investment.
right, but I get revenue doesn't include all the things. Cause it's a benefit, it could be a benefit that's not.
Right,
I don't know.
and this, I usually, you say benefit to the public, but that wouldn't be appropriate here,
Right,
but that's the way.
It seems like it all centers around that they need to use this cost benefit model that Senator Cummings was talking about.
Right.
And benefit fits in cost benefit, but I don't know that it
I think
is.
cost benefit is return on investment.
Right,
Return on
yeah,
investment,
yeah, so I think that's.
Again, you
Support that.
see if Joan or others. think
Right.
Have a problem for any reason with
Yeah,
that concern, but that's what people are thinking about, it's help in terms.
Right,
If we're spending this money, what are we getting for it?
yeah,
right, and who gets the benefit?
right,
Now, obviously, you're also talking about it, say, obviously, the benefits are principally new jobs. And, or jobs at higher pay, or
Right.
there are a number of potential benefits.
Right.
so let's keep working on
Okay.
these. So next thing I have was top of page 12. And it relates back to page 10 where the verification of the requirements start. I don't know if you wanted to go. through
Right.
that.
There are some changes here as well. I
Yeah.
believe 6. I need to go back to my notes and see what the commissioner suggested for that.
Okay. This is the quote unquote economic voodoo that Senator was talking about. This is where you, to determine it, to spit out a dollar amount in this cost benefit analysis, you have to take the full-time employees, the capital investment, you know, the monthly interest and the payment they're gonna receive, like, it's kind of spelling out the formula.
Well, there should be a formula.
Exactly, so that's what this does. And that was some of the work she was saying when made it go from like an algorithm black box to this is essentially the formula. So
So,
it's important, but once they satisfy the formula, they're paid back. Is what that's saying.
so is the formula available publicly?
This makes it available publicly.
For the forgivable loan.
Right.
But there's also a formula for the veggie, right?
For original value.
Yeah.
That is existing language.
But I mean, there's an actual formula.
Yes, so calculating the value of the
Box, yes.
incentive starts on page 9, that's the existing language.
But do we have, if I said, can I have the formula, will they give me the formula?
Let's
For the
ask that.
tax part.
Let's ask
I don't think that people really understand.
I don't know if it's a tax department, well, maybe it is, but anyway,
No, it's part of the
It's-
veggie board, when it determines,
right,
as it evaluates the proposal, it does a calculation, it uses the black box.
Right.
In terms of coming up with what is the expected target benefit, and then we can measure against that.
Alright, so I can
Yeah.
find that black, I mean,
Yeah.
I'd like to see what's in the
Yeah,
black box.
Joan could give you that detail,
Okay,
but I don't think it's gonna be, I don't think it'd be easy to explain, quite frankly.
oh, and I don't necessarily want to explain it, but I just want to at least understand it so I can
Mhm.
describe it.
Yeah.
I would talk.
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
So-
no, I won't
so
bring it
this
up.
was sounds like a policy question, not, you don't have an issue with number 6?
I mean-
As it's.
Uh,
Yeah,
no,
top of
no,
page
no,
12.
I think sorry, I'm sorry, what page?
Top of page 12.
12, right, okay. No, that was a what is it? It wasn't a, it should be changed.
Yeah, so that refers back to that form.
Okay, and
So-
then now we'll have two different formulas.
Yes, and you can, especially because you're only giving them $5,000 per employee for small businesses. It's a smaller reward. Smaller.
Right, although I thought it cost us about 3,000 per employee for the regular budget. Remember? They had that, that's their history.
I don't wanna misspeak them, so.
I'll ask Joan about it.
Okay. There's more year realignment.
That we're
year
getting rid of,
realignment.
right?
That's it. That's all I got.
So I've looked at 12. Are there anything else I should take away? Work on, I'm gonna work on, so we're on the same page, the incentive language for employee and cooperatively owned businesses. Okay. I'm gonna go back to the way it was statute for the award year. The 5 years, award period. And go back to as it was in statute for that award year. References. The 3-3-3-7.
So it's all the 2 years to 4 years.
All that stuff going back to the way it was in statute.
Yeah, and it's exists in multiple.
What about on minus page 14, the award year 3? With this new language? I imagine you want to strike that because in a previous subdivision, they had award years 2 and 3.
Yes, and because they have award year 4 and 5.
Yes.
So we want to
Bring back
restore
5.
award year
Okay.
4 and 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
Does everyone see that?
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
hardest thing for me, it's, there's a place where year two
I know.
actually means year 2 and 3, but we don't call it year 2 and 3. So that'll be fun.
It's really kind of like our fault it's written this way. It's okay, not rigged. I mean, just like over the years, we've tried to clarify
Yeah.
and make it, this is, some formulas don't exist in statute. We try to be extremely explicit and it gets confusing.
Okay.
Productive, okay.
That's very
Yes,
productive.
So
Thank
vote
you,
scheduled
Ray.
for Friday on this.
Yes.
And Senator Harrison, you and I will be in touch.
We have Rick's schedule.
We're gonna talk to the commissioner about
Yes.
some of these things, okay?
Yes,
And just keep me in the loop,
definitely.
and I'll send you an updated draft,
Okay.
which includes some minor non-substantive changes. And then once I have the enhanced, incentive language, I'll send that to you as well. And it'll
Okay,
be today,
that's fine.
but
Okay,
today's Wednesday.
today's Wednesday.
Oh, plenty of time.
I know.
Yeah.
All right, kids go down in 6 hours, so you know what, how hard can it be?
We did vote something out. that
Yeah,
you
yes,
Take
yes.
off your
Yes,
list.
yes, you did.
No other committee, in the Senate.
Yes, yeah, I know.
Straight to the floor on Tuesday. So,
All right,
yeah, thank you, Rick.
Thank you
Thanks
all.
for everything. We'll see you back on cashless payment
yes. Tomorrow?
tomorrow.
Thank you.